closed. And so this week, I'd like to share with you, I'd like to speak about a few things. I'd like to speak about the portrait of Dorian Gray. I'd like to speak about the short opening. I'd like to speak about this week's parsha, and I would like to speak about elastic bands. So let's begin. Let's begin. The Portrait of Dorian Gray, perhaps the only novel by Oscar Wilde, somewhat censored in its time for its rather challenging and graphic detail. But The Portrait of Dorian Gray is an amazing story about a man who wants to stay fixed, who wants to stay in a particular way of being. Dorian is handsome, he's beautiful, and he has this portrait made. And he does a deal, a satanic deal, that the portrait will age while he stays unchanged. And as he does more and more things which challenge his sense of humanity, so he stays perfect, but the portrait becomes more and more broken, more and more ugly, until it's almost unrecognizable as an image, a likeness of this man. Dorian is stuck in a particular way of being. And I want to talk about what it is to be stuck and what it is to be elastic. I've had a number of conversations across the past few months with people, and it's almost been like the shul opening has been the light at the end of the tunnel, the lifeline that which we're all holding on to. And the challenge with that is, I just want to show you what the shul looks like at the moment. I did this last week, but it's looking a bit different. Okay, so we've got these wonderful plastic chairs, which are particularly uncomfortable for my back. I don't know about yours. Okay, we've got two chairs next to each other. The two chairs there, they're next to each other because one of them says, please sit here. And the other one says, this is for where your belongings are, because getting into the cloakroom is pretty challenging during lockdown. We've got a few chairs along the wall over here. The mechita is probably going to be moved forward, but there isn't at the moment. The shul's not set up with a massive ladies section, but it will be moved forward to accommodate all the ladies that want to come. But this is the shul. If you notice, there'll be arrows on the ground demonstrating our one-way system of movement through the shul. And of course, I have my face mask over here. I'm not going to put it on right now, but my face mask, because we'll all be wearing face masks whilst we're in here. Imagine giving a sermon whilst wearing a face mask. Imagine singing out and having a spluttering fit whilst wearing a face mask. So is this the light at the end of the tunnel? Is this what we've all been waiting for? Finally, that we can remove ourselves from the need to be adaptable during lockdown and come back to shul. Baruch Hashem. I don't think so. I think this is not the light at the end of the tunnel at the moment, and I think that we're still going to require quite a lot of elasticity. And so the conversations I had with a number of people were along the lines of, well, I'm not really that interested in Zoom. It's a bit beyond me. It's not really my thing. I don't catch up on YouTube. I'm just waiting for shul to reopen. But unfortunately, that's also going to be disappointing. And so we need to think about what it is to be stuck in a particular picture and a particular frame. I'm looking at myself in Zoom over here. I've got a frame around me. I'm stuck in my frame. What's it like to be Dorian, stuck in his picture in a particular image of who he wants to be, unable to come to terms with what life is, the richness of life that is coming to challenge us, coming to force us on some level to be unstuck. And in this week's parasha, we encounter two very different people who are both stuck. We have a double parasha this week. We have parashas Chukat and then parashas Balak. And both of these parashios, both of these Torah portions deal with two people, one a hero, one a villain, but both of them stuck. And let's examine these two characters, these two individuals. In parashas Chukat, we have the fateful story whereby Moses, he is asked to speak to the rock. Speak to the rock, says Hashem. Then it will give forth of its water. And rather than speak to the rock, he takes his staff and he strikes the rock. He struck the rock in the past. He's done this before. But this time, he wasn't commanded to strike the rock. He was commanded to speak to the rock. And for that, he loses his hope, his dream, the fulfillment of his vision. He is not able to go with Am Yisrael, with the people of Israel, as they go into the land of Israel. He cannot see the fulfillment of his vision, that this slave nation that he has aligned himself with, that he was taken away from them at a young age, brought up in the house of Pharaoh, escaped to the land of Midian, a revelation from God at the burning bush, a mission to take this people out, 10 plagues, an exodus from Egypt, salvation at the sea, giving of the Torah at Sinai, traveling through the desert for 40 years. You are not going to go into the land of Israel. You will not go in. You hit the rock. You didn't speak to it. Just seems so difficult. Why can't he go in for this small change? Speaking versus striking, striking versus speaking. I mean, it's miraculous to produce water from a rock. It's miraculous, irrespective of whether I do it through striking or do it through speaking. Now, we went into a greater depth about this in Chasing Lullabies this week, so I don't want to walk over already covered territory. But just on a basic level, what is the difference? You see, the children of Israel are about to shift. They're about to change. They're about to go from an existence in the desert to an existence in Israel. What's the difference between living in the desert and living in Israel? And the difference is like this. In the desert, they live in a world of miracles. They live in a world where everything is provided to them from outside. God is this pillar of cloud, this pillar of fire by night. There's manna falling from heaven. Everything that they could possibly need is given to them. There are open miracles. It's almost like there's this external force reaching from on high, from a higher world, from a celestial plane, and interacting with them at every moment. They've heard the word of God. They've had open revelation of his glory. That is a relationship to God where I see God as somewhat external, almost like an outside force, but he interacts in my life. It's like a staff hitting a rock and something miraculous happening. That's the pattern that they have lived in throughout their time in the desert. And that's exactly what Moses does. He continues that pattern. He remains unchanging in this positioning of God as an external force, as a powerful force, supernaturally engaging in my world. But Israel's not like that. Israel isn't a land where miracles happen from outside. Israel is a land where miracles happen from inside. Just to think about it, Israel in 1948 was a desert. It was a wasteland. Jews came to populate the land of Israel, and it sprouted like a beautiful, bountiful, luscious field. Just the greenery, the plants, unbelievable. Now, is that an external force? No. There's an internal force. The power of Jews settling in the land of Israel causes it to sprout. It's an internal existence. Speak to the rock and it will just pour forth of its water. Don't look for God out there, supernaturally engaging down here. Look for God right here in the natural world and see him expressed in everything that you do. You won't have open miracles anymore in the land of Israel. You'll have internal presence of God in every rock, in every tree. It's the land of Israel. God is inside everything. Godliness is inside everything. Speak to a rock and tell it its job is to produce water. It'll produce water. This is an Israel-style rock. Hey, in Israel today, they can even get fresh water out of salty water. It's unbelievable. Desalination is one of Israel's most exportable technologies. And so Moses was unable to change. He wasn't able to transition from a leader of the desert to a leader of Israel. It's not that this particular infraction, speaking, striking, speaking, it's not that this particular issue, that small seeming movement from God's command, it's not this disobedience that's the problem. It's that it shows us that Moshe is unable to adapt to being the leader, the new leader that they need. The leader who will show them God inside every rock and tree, rather than the leader who will bring down God from on high. And so Moshe cannot take them in. He can't change. He can't shift. He's stuck in his picture. Then we move on to Parashas Balak. And we have a king of Midian who wants to curse the Jewish people. And he calls Bilam. He calls the prophet, the non-Jewish prophet Bilam, to curse the Jewish people. And Bilam is told by God, whatever you do, whatever happens, I will not let you curse them. You can try all you want. You can go on this mountain, you can go on that mountain. Whatever happens, this is not happening on my watch, so to speak, says God. It's not happening. And what does he do? It's like Bilam seemingly, proverbially, knocks his head against the wall. He keeps on trying. He keeps on trying and trying and trying. And he goes to that place and he offers up the bulls and he does the sacrifices and the dreams and the donations. And he blesses the children of Israel. And he goes to that rock, and he goes to that place, and he looks at it from this angle, and once again, he offers this ball and that donation and that, and again, he blesses the children of Israel. He keeps on knocking his head against the brick wall. If you ever, sometimes I get stuck. I just feel like I need to knock my head against the brick wall. That's exactly what Bilam is doing. And it's never working. It's not working. He won't adapt. He won't wake up. He won't accept the situation. The situation is one where the Jewish people cannot be cursed. He won't accept the new reality, this current reality. He's stuck in a world where he can curse, even though God has told him he can't. He's stuck in his picture. He can't move out of it. So let's talk about elastic bands. Let's talk about being elastic. What do we do when the picture is ripped apart? When the picture changes? When we thought we were coming back to shul, but this isn't shul as we know it, Jim. This isn't shul as we know it. We have to be elastic. We can't be stuck. Otherwise we get left behind in the desert. Or stuck blessing, well, blessings aren't so bad for the Jewish people, but stuck blessing on the mountain. Stuck doing something that is unsuccessful, that is not going to achieve what we wanted to achieve. As we throw our words out from the mountainside. Or we get stuck in a picture which is no longer an expression of reality. It's just our fantasy, like Dorian. We have to be elastic. We have to be open to the new now that we face. I won't call it the new normal, because that's a constantly moving reality. The new now. And every now is new, it's fresh, and we have to be dynamic, energized, engaged, seeing what we can get from this moment rather than hoping for what once was. Because what once was will not be, at least for a long time. And even then, we'll have passed so many journeys on the way, it will never be. So how do we be elastic? It's very nice for me to say be elastic, but what do you do? How can you do that? Many of us are stuck in habits, are stuck in routines. This is the way we understand what shul is. This is the way we understand what life is, what social interactions are, what learning is, what growth is, what development is, whatever. This is the way we understand what life looks like. How do we shift that? How do we play with that? How can we make that a little bit more elastic? And it's kind of understandable why we get stuck in our ways of seeing things, because habits are so useful. You know, when you have a habit, then you don't have to think anymore. And that means that you've got other brain power, other processing for something novel, for something different. It's like, I don't know if you've ever found this, sometimes you get in the car and you just start driving. And you realize halfway to your destination that you're actually, for me, like I'm actually doing the school run when I was meant to be going to the shops. That's because I'm so used to doing the school run at this particular time in the morning. I'm not even thinking anymore. I'm just on autopilot. I'm just driving, right? I'm on autopilot, and I found myself halfway to Edgware when I was really meant to be going to Waitrose. Now, what's going on there? We're just stuck, and that's okay, because that's quite useful when I need to do the school run. I don't have to think about it. But when I need to go to Waitrose, it's not so helpful. We have to be a little bit more open to having flexibility in our habits. So here's a little tool. Here's a little challenge as a habit breaker this Shabbat in preparation for the elasticity that we might need to be people that can move from desert to Israel, from blessing to curse, from curse to blessing, breaking out of our pictures. Just a little habit breaker is try sitting in a seat at the Shabbat table that you don't normally sit in. We've all got our set seats normally, right? I sit here, she sits there, the kids sit there. That's like, there's our normal pattern. That's where we sit at our Shabbat table. And we've done that for a very long time. We might have done that for years. And it could be, there's a status attached to it that dad sits at the head of the table, not to talk about particular images of like paternalistic societies in Judaism. But in any case, we all have our places. And it's the same thing in shul. A lot of us have a particular seat in shul. And there's no fixed seating in shul at the moment, other than the fact that over there, I'm probably still going to be sitting at the front. But it's a new seat for me anyway. But try sitting at a different place at the Shabbat table and just see what the perspective is like from another chair. It will be uncomfortable, it will be unusual, and we probably won't like it initially. But it could be refreshing to have a different perspective from a different chair. And as time goes on, challenge ourselves to do small little deviances, small little changes from our daily routine, from our habits, just to be able to have a comfort with what it's like to have a little bit of elasticity, a little bit of flexibility. I'm not asking anyone to pull so tight that it snaps. I don't think that's necessary. I think that if we can engage with a little bit of playfulness, a little bit of elasticity, a little bit of dynamism to these changing sands, we will be able to manage the constantly changing expectations of the moment, because we can put those expectations aside and just live in the now, the now, the now. And then we can break out of our pictures and live healthily together. I'm looking forward to seeing you all, both in shul and on Zoom, over the next few weeks. Shul will feel strange, and Zoom already feels strange. So let's embrace a new strange together. Shabbat Shalom.